the largest retirement crisis in human history is already underway. The first wave hits in 2028, and the people it will hurt most have no idea it's coming.
You know what? These higher prices are really hurting people who are retiring. And in the survey, we found out that 70% of the people said, wow, these higher prices, I didn't count.
There's a generation of about 65 million Americans that barely shows up in the retirement conversation. Boomers dominate the headlines. Millennials dominate the cultural anxiety. But sandwiched right between them is a group that by nearly every financial metric is heading toward the most acute retirement disaster in modern U.S. history, Generation X. Born between 1965 and 1980, now between 45 and 60 years old. These are people who grew up on cassette tapes, latchkey afternoons, and the unspoken promise that if you worked hard and played by the rules, retirement would come. The problem is the rules changed quietly, structurally, and mostly without their consent just as they were entering the workforce. 40% of Gen Xers have saved nothing in a private retirement account. Nothing. The median 401k balance for a Gen Xer in their late 50s sits around $87,000. Americans consider $1.46 million the magic number for retirement. That median balance is less than 6% of that target. And Social Security, the last line of defense, is heading toward a cliff with a very specific date stamped on it. This video is about how that happened, why it's about to get worse, and what the window of action still looks like. Because there is one, but it's closing. To understand why Gen X is in this position, you have to understand one policy decision that quietly rewired how retirement works in America. In the early 1980s, around 60% of private sector workers had defined benefit pension plans. These are the kinds your grandparents had you work 30 years. The company funds your retirement. You receive guaranteed income for life regardless of market performance. The investment risk stays with the employer. Then came the 401k, originally added to the tax code in 1978 as a supplemental savings vehicle for executives, not a replacement for pensions. But within a decade, corporate executives, whose own pensions were already secured, systematically swapped out pension obligations for 401k plans. By eliminating pension liabilities from their balance sheets, they transferred all the retirement risk onto the worker. Today, only 14% of Gen X workers have access to a traditional pension. The national figure for private sector workers has fallen from 60% to roughly 15%. Even Ted Benna, the man widely credited as the father of the 401k, has publicly said he's not proud of what his invention became. He created it as a supplement, not a replacement. But the generation that paid the price for that decision wasn't boomers. It was Gen X, the first full generation to enter the workforce without defined benefit pensions as the norm. And then the crises started. What makes Gen X's situation unlike any previous generation isn't just the policy decisions, it's the timing of the financial catastrophes. The dot-com crash hit when they were between 20 and 37, wiping out their first serious savings, and the stock market dropped nearly 80% from peak to trough. The 2001 recession followed immediately after. Then, just as they reached their peak wealth-building years, ages 28 to 44, the 2008 financial crisis arrived. And here's what made 2008 especially devastating for Gen X specifically. While boomers had more of their wealth in financial assets, Gen Xers had theirs concentrated in their homes. So when the housing market collapsed, they were hit twice: equity losses and job losses simultaneously. The median net worth of a Gen X household dropped 38% between 2007 and 2010. Boomers lost 26%. The silent generation lost 14%. Many Gen Xers lost up to 45% of their savings in that crash. And this happened during the exact window when compound interest should have been building their long-term wealth most aggressively. Then COVID hit when they were 40 to 55. Then inflation. then rate shocks. No American generation has faced more economic disruptions during their prime wealth-building years. And here's the cruelest part: this all happened to a generation that was already running without the pension safety net that every generation before them had. But this wasn't even the heaviest weight they were carrying, because while all of this was happening, Gen X became the sandwich generation. More than half of Americans in their 40s have both an aging parent and a child they're actively supporting. 83% of Gen Xers have caregiving responsibilities for a child, a parent, or both, and 76% describe managing all of it as almost like a full-time job. But here's the financial impact nobody talks about. 59% of sandwich generation members have reduced or stopped retirement contributions entirely because of the simultaneous cost of raising children and caring for aging parents. 40% say caregiving has derailed their retirement strategy completely. This is the real story behind those savings numbers. This isn't a generation that didn't care about retirement. It's a generation that was structurally squeezed out of saving for it by design, by disaster, and by duty. And now, there's a countdown clock running that most of them haven't even seen. The Social Security OASI Trust Fund is projected to be depleted by 2032. Not gone, but depleted to the point where, under current law, only about 77% of scheduled benefits would be payable. That's an automatic, across-the-board cut of approximately 24%. The average Social Security benefit right now is $1,976 per month. A 24% cut would bring that to roughly $1,502. For a dual-earning couple retiring in 2033, the CREP estimates that's $18,100 less per year. And 2032 is not a distant abstraction. The oldest Gen Xers born in 1965 will be 67 that year, full retirement age, counting on those benefits, arriving precisely at the moment the trust fund hits its wall. Traditional retirement planning talks about a three-legged stool: Social Security, an employer pension, and personal savings. For most Gen Xers, the pension leg was sawed off before they started. The savings leg is critically short, and the Social Security leg is now cracked. For tens of millions of people, there is only one unstable leg left standing. And this doesn't just affect Gen X, because when millions of people can't afford to retire, they don't. They stay in the workforce into their late 60s and 70s, competing with younger workers for jobs. Millennials and Gen Z lose advancement opportunities. The cascade runs downward, and those Gen Xers who can't work because of health or caregiving fall into poverty. Research consistently shows poverty is associated with dying 9 years sooner. This is not just a financial crisis, it's a public health one. Here's what I want to make clear. The system failed Gen X structurally. That is real, but the window to act hasn't closed, and this is what you actually need to know. If you're 50 or older, the EARS allows catch-up contributions, an additional $7,500 on top of the standard 401k limit. And Secure 2.0 introduced a super catch-up for ages 60 to 63 up to $11,250 in additional contributions starting in 2025. This is one of the most underused tools in retirement planning. On Social Security, delaying collection from age 62 to 70 can increase your lifetime benefit by up to 76%. Every year of delay beyond 62 adds approximately 6 to 8%. Given that a potential 24% cut is already priced into the worst-case scenario, a maximized benefit leaves you far better positioned than an early, reduced one. If you're carrying high-interest credit card debt, and 43% of Gen Xers are, with average balances over $10,000, tackle that first. At 20% APR, debt destroys wealth faster than most investments can build it. And look at health savings accounts, the most tax-efficient savings vehicle available. Contributions are pre-tax, growth is tax-free, and withdrawals for medical expenses are tax-free. Fidelity estimates that a 65-year-old today may need $172,500 just for healthcare costs in retirement, a number not included in most people's savings targets. None of these moves fixes a broken system, but they represent real agency in a situation where agency still exists. Close Gen X didn't fail. The system they were handed was broken before they walked through the door and then knocked them down every time they tried to get back up. The question for the next 7 years isn't whether this crisis is real. It is. The question is whether the people most affected by it and the policymakers with the power to change the Social Security math before 2032 will treat it with the urgency it deserves. And for anyone watching this who's still in the window, the best time to act was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. If this was useful, subscribe.